Hello, and welcome to Embracing the Fight. I am Erica Lamar, your digital creator and host. And if you've been with me since January of 2023, you will know that Embracing the Fight is about normalizing the conversations surrounding physical and mental health issues and concerns. Now, why do you need to do that? Think about it. If someone is struggling with something that is draining them of their finances, draining them of their health, draining them of their sanity, do you think they're going to just come to anyone and talk to them about it? No. Most folks will suffer in silence. And when they suffer in silence, they tend to implode or explode. Those who are imploding, next thing you know, you hear about your friend or the person that you know that you thought had it all together committed suicide, or the one that exploded that went over to that elementary school and decided to shoot up a whole school full of little kids that had nothing to do with whatever it was that they had going on in their mind. This platform was designed to help us to be able to speak and have those conversations because your words have life. Once you're able to speak the things that bother you, there is a greater possibility that it can be healed. Now, if you know someone that needs help, don't belittle them. Help them. Grab their hand and take them to where they can get help. And if you don't know where they can get help, please send me an email to operations@diversitydesigned.com and I can help point them in the right direction. Because even if I don't know, I guarantee you I'll find out. Because I want us to help heal one person at a time. And if you haven't yet, please, please, please click subscribe, click like, click share on my YouTube channel, Embracing the Fight. I'm also on all other social media platforms as Embracing the Fight. The only difference is Instagram is Embracing the Fight underscore. So that's Embracing the Fight underscore. Now that I've gotten all the business of Embracing the Fight out of the way, you will see that I have a very beautiful young woman on my screen today. Her name is Gabrielle Funches. So, Gabriella, who are you?
My name is Gabrielle Funches. I am a medical massage therapist and a wellness coach and educator here in the Las Vegas area. I specialize in the physical manifestations of PTSD and CPTSD.
All right. And as always, anyone who comes on the show, people are like, how did you meet Miss Gabrielle Funches? Gabrielle, how did we meet?
We met in Miss Joy's, was it to the bank challenge? Get me to
You
the
at the
bank
bank?
challenge?
Hmm.
Yeah. The super informative. I feel like we've met some like really great people, and I think it was a great place to kind of like meet like-minded people.
Yes. And I feel like you my friend already because the energy is so good here, so strong.
Agreed.
It's so great that she gave me the most awesome episode name, episode 104, The Body Translator. So why did you name this episode The Body Translator?
So my assistant gave me the name. My assistant was actually a client of mine at first.
Okay.
And because of the way that I have always explained how the body works and how it translates through the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual aspect to it, and can not only translate it, but also explain it to the way my clients can understand. She was just like, we're just gonna go ahead and call you the body translator because you just know too much stuff. Because
I
it's like a
love it.
language. The body is its own language.
Right. I love it. So, with the body having its own language, what does it really do when you have stress? How does it speak? How does stress translate coming out of the body?
Stress translates in a lot of different ways.
Okay.
It translates through the skin.
Mhm.
It translates through the eyes, and even just down to like your personal structure, how you breathe, what you eat. Adrenaline can pop up in a lot of different ways. So, like a lot of times, what I will notice is with women, when we get above a certain age, when we start feeling a little heavy, realistically, what it is not fat. A lot more times, it's actually lymph buildup
Okay.
from being an adrenaline overload.
Oh wow. It's interesting that you say that too, because it was something that we kind of talked about a little bit off camera when I was telling you about my thyroid cancer journey. That was
Hmm.
prior to me finding out that I had thyroid cancer. That was the most stressful time of my life. I was working 16-hour days.
Oh,
I wasn't making any more money. I had two crews of people. I felt like I wasn't heard. I felt like every time I turned around, more and more was being dropped on me. And the next thing I know, it's like, okay, you got all this going on. Guess what? You got thyroid cancer. So my body was probably screaming something and I didn't notice it. So, what are some things that your body does before it gets to that point that you need to pay attention to?
the first thing it'll start to do is close down on itself.
Okay.
So if you the best way I can get you to visualize it is like thinking like what happens to a spider, right? Is that when a spider starts to die, it kind of comes in on itself to protect its insides. So anytime that you have something that flares up, and this it's always something that I look at no matter what. So when I look at my clients, I always look at is what I see equating to what you're telling me.
Okay.
So the first thing I look for is where are you caving in?
Wow. So walk me through it. Imagine I'm coming in to you as a client
Hmm.
and I'm complaining of having headaches and seeing spots and my lower back hurts and I'm tired. What would you do to help me rid some of these symptoms, if not all of them?
I would ask if you have had a jaw problem.
Okay. And
But they interconnect,
okay.
right? A lot of the things that attach to the jaw also run through the thyroid. Usually, I don't jump to worst case scenario. Usually, I'll ask questions to like pull back layers. So, if we're talking, depending on the type of headaches, the jaw actually has a direct relationship to the hips. So, sometimes your jaw can cause some low back pain. What, girl, this is a whole rabbit hole. The jaw has a direct relationship to the hip. So sometimes that can cause low back pain and vice versa. So if you're having low back or hip pain, it can cause issue in the jaw. Depending on the type of headache, I would assume that you are probably having some like TMJ issues that's maybe like cutting off like some blood flow, like or a little bit of carotid artery. Either way it goes, we're getting some compression behind the ear.
And you just had my mind going 100 miles per hour because at one point my jaw was like clicking and popping, and I was like, what in the world is going on here? And it was the most annoying thing ever. And I had it
Mm-hmm.
ringing in my ears, and I went and I got a massage. They asked me, they were like, well, what do you want us to focus on today? And I was like, everything, because I just feel, out of sorts. But once he started to do the massage, he paid special attention, like to right in this area and
Mm-hmm.
like in the middle of my back. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I was
So
like,
jaw has a direct relationship to your first rib, has a relationship to pec minor, that has a direct relationship and a correlating relationship to your breathing, to your diaphragm.
okay.
So when something starts to go wrong, all of it caves in on itself.
Mhm.
So it's a matter of finding the what. So usually what I would do is even based off of minimal information, I'm doing what I would call a full body overhaul. Is I'm releasing everything to put your body into symmetry. And then I'm asking you to come back a week later to see what your natural movement is that gets you out of symmetry. And if you were somebody where your thyroid was at play, you would do this. And it would be very exaggerated.
You did a lot. Wow. So basically, you do a baseline first.
Mm-hmm.
After you do a baseline, you really start the treatment. So, being able to do that, what type of training did you have?
So I went to school under it, and if anybody went to any form of like Steiner education, we had a couple of them all over the country. But I had a really good like basic massage education. So we took anatomy 1 through 3 and pathology 1 through 3. Kinesio, I think I graduated school with Swedish shiatsu, Russian hydro, trigger point.
Wow.
Yeah, I graduated school with like 13 modalities. So by the time I made it into school, by the time I made it into the field, I could have a practice. You just are basically practicing until you find your niche.
Mhm.
I found that I really, really loved anatomy and I really, really loved clinical body work. So I really loved taking the way the body worked and realistically releasing and like it was kind of like my own form of like Rubik's Cube. You can release here and create a complete difference somewhere else.
Mhm.
So when I left Massage Envy, because that's where we all start, because you have to be able to work coming into the industry, and I started working in the medical field. So I started working for like chiropractors and PTs. and MDs. Like I probably worked with everything short of a surgeon. So you see a little bit of everything. You see Chiari's deformation, you see cancer patients, you see children, you see you well everything. And just over time, as you start to piece anatomy together, it's a language that starts to make sense. And then as you start looking into anatomy, then you start looking into the environment that affects the anatomy. So now we're looking at climate and culture and socioeconomic, so all these things that surround the body. And now you have to look at it on a psychological level. So what's going on? How does the body respond to this thing? And then it takes you down the rabbit hole of spirituality. And it's like, next thing you know,
Yep.
next thing
You
you
got
know,
the
you're
whole
putting together the
person.
whole human experience.
Yep, you got the whole person. And you got me thinking about this stuff, totally different now. Because, I was thinking, oh, just go get a massage and, you feel great. But I didn't even understand why, like trigger
Yeah.
point or anything like that. I just felt you were working my muscles and my muscles
Yes.
were just releasing. But it's more to it than that because you connected to mental, as well, right?
Mhm.
So what is the connection you think between the actual massage and the mental release?
The way it affects the nervous system.
Okay.
Because the so because disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, so I cannot
Yeah.
overstep my boundaries certain things, but I do know my anatomy and it is my thing. So when it comes down to the nervous system, it is one big piece of tissue, continuous piece of tissue, very much so like the skin.
Mhm.
So everything about your mental capacity is held in that tissue,
Mhm.
and it sends impulses out to your body, expecting impulses to come back in.
Yeah.
So when you're on a table with somebody, regardless of their skill set, as long as their intentions are good, regardless of what modality they do, it's supposed to be meant to help soothe the nervous system.
Okay.
So
Okay.
now we're putting a certain type of stimuli into the brain to allow the body to know that it's safe.
Okay. So from that point where the body knows it's safe and it starts to, release and you feel better, how often should a person actually go to get a massage? Are they going to wait until they get tense and stressed out again? Or is this something that they should do, like make a therapeutic schedule for?
I thoroughly believe in the therapeutic schedule. I tell my clients very regularly that the human condition is not conducive to the way that we're supposed to live. So
Right.
nobody is 100% all the time. We're not supposed to be sitting as much as we are. Our food is barely food. The exposure to life that we get is very, very hard on our nervous system. So having a regular therapeutic schedule, maybe like twice a month or like every 3 weeks, is enough to kind of help keep you regulated, and then also getting you back into knowing your own body so you can regulate yourself.
Okay.
That's the goal point for me, is to help you get to a point where you can regulate yourself.
Okay. And do you teach your clients any stretches or
Mm-hmm.
anything to maintain? So what would be like a typical program that you would?
One, I also teach my clients anatomy. So
Okay.
I help them understand the parts of their anatomy that are withholding them, because anatomy is such a vast thing.
Yes.
So I'm not going to give you the whole rundown, but if I explain to you that your diaphragm is creating such restriction in your ribs where you're not getting enough oxygen, I'm going to explain to you where it is,
Mhm.
what it does, how it's affecting you, and what needs to be done to not only keep it moving, but also keeping spinal mobility as well.
Mhm. And then have you ever had any patients that were like morbidly obese? And if you did, how exactly, do you get to a point where you can potentially help them? For instance, I'm thinking mainly like people that have lymphedema, because you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned,
Lymphedema is very common. Actually, massage is prescribed quite a bit for lymphedema.
okay. So have you ever had anyone that was 500 plus and you were able to, help them to relieve some of that issue they were having with lymphedema?
So,
Or
so the thing that we have to be cautious of, and one of the things that I am very notorious for in my part of the industry, is honesty. When it comes to what we consider morbidly obese, I do not give them full body sessions for the sake of the stability of their joints. What I
okay.
will do for them is we will focus on lymph drainage first, and then we will focus on restructuring at the joints that require not only require stability, but take the hardest part of your load.
Okay.
So I'm not going to release your glutes. I'm going to release your back. So what'll happen is you'll feel really light in the back and you'll stand straight up. But if I release your glutes, you'll collapse in on yourself. So dealing with somebody of a certain size requires a little bit of consideration and a very, very open conversation about what's to happen
Okay.
without judgment.
Okay. So when you think about the elderly, there are a lot of elderly people that have never had a massage. Let's specifically look, say, at the baby boomer generation. I only say
Mm-hmm.
this because I know my parents are both baby boomers and I convinced them to get massages and now they love them. But prior to that, the thought of stripping down, in front of, well, not really in front of them, like just being vulnerable, basically, to another person.
So what
Okay.
I've learned is that's a ruse.
Mhm.
That's what they say to not have to do it. It's the unknown that they don't like.
Right.
It's the because I've walked quite a few baby boomers through this one, and baby boomers are what 80s? They're in their 80s now.
No, they're almost 80. Like, so my dad is a part of the silent generation. That's 1945. The baby boomers started like 47, I believe. And that's
Okay,
my mom's
so
baby
if
boomer.
I thought about the work that I've done with a lot of them, they come from an era of hard labor.
Yes,
They come from an era of suck it up and go.
yes.
Um, there was no external touch outside of your parents or your spouse or your children. So when you try to explain to them therapeutic, good touch that's supposed to help with, whatever it is that you're showing up with, one, it just doesn't sound right. They feel like they've lived their entire life. Why do I need to do this now? I'm healthy now. Why do I need to change this?
Mhm. That,
So, and then it becomes once they start having the physical release,
mhm,
then comes the somatic stuff.
mhm. Okay.
And that's the other part was when those feelings start to come to the surface from 1967.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, it's very interesting because you come across all different types of people. You like we just talked, the baby boomers, the morbidly obese. What about people that are struggling like with mental health?
They're my
And
favorites.
hmm,
They're
you
my favorites.
okay, so let's talk about it.
They're my favorites because they're what people in my industry would call difficult. And the thing is, I would say about 90% of the world's population is stuck in a space somewhere.
Mhm.
And where they're stuck and why they're stuck, everybody's story and everybody's journey is different.
Mhm.
And when you find it, right? Because some people don't really know themselves well enough to say, hey, if I tweak this out of your body a little bit, you might be okay.
Right.
Right. I had a lady who probably hadn't smiled in like 2 years. And
Wow.
it was mostly because she was having an issue with headaches.
Mhm.
And instead of someone actually looking into like her suboccipitals, did like exploratory surgery after exploratory surgery. They put a plate in this girl's face and all types of stuff. So, but it never got better. So she's going through all this stuff and she can't bring herself to smile. She's like living on the edge.
Poor thing.
And all we did, I think we offset her jaw a little bit and offset her suboccipitals, and you could start to see her body change. Like you could see her limbs start to drain. And you could see it. She came in one day smiling. I had to catch her. I was like, "Is that smile?"
I love it. I love
But
it.
I love dealing with those people because a lot of it, most of why they're angry isn't just the mental, it's that physical feeling that keeps them stuck. It keeps a reminder as to how it got there. Very much what happens to addicts.
I got you. Okay. So what about people who have been injured? And you have to be extremely careful with these people because I know I was shadowing at a hospital when I was like in high school. We did it for like maybe 2 days, and I ended up going to a room where a person had been in a car accident and they were in traction and
Mm-hmm.
they were finally cutting, all of the cast and everything off of them. And you got to go to physical therapy. And when I say that man screamed the entire time.
Hmm.
And they were trying to get him in physical therapy, but then they said, okay, now we're going to take you and we're going to give you a massage and all this and that. But when he came into the room, he was asleep. And I was like, if you in that kind of pain, and they said they didn't give him any medication. I'm like, you in that kind of pain, what in the world calm you down? It had to be the massage. So how do you deal or how do you work with, the people that are injured without sitting there saying, oh, I don't want to hurt them too. I know you're a professional, so you're not worried about hurting them
It's
because you
very,
know
it's
what you're
very common, but I'm one of those people in my industry. I was always very curious, and the whys have always inquired me. Like I never wanted to be restricted by what I couldn't do, so I always exposed myself to everything that I could. And if I chose at some point in time it wasn't for me, then it just wasn't for me. And I never encountered what wasn't for me. So when it comes to injury specifically, so we're talking acute injury of something of that magnitude, that's all about making them comfortable. That's soft touch, that's safe touch, that's getting them to a place where they can just kind of get back in touch with reality in a gentle way. Now, if we're talking about old injury, somebody who's probably lived with a back surgery for a very long period of time, I've seen people who have had kind of botched surgeries, which is even harder to deal with.
Mhm.
Those type of people, if you explain to them what's going to happen, because the healing process on a couple of different levels isn't always comfortable,
Right.
right? So with them, it almost feels like it gets worse before it gets better. And it's like, no, what you're feeling is your body kind of being something like a tourniquet. So if you've ever had blood drawn before, you get that one nurse that likes to tie it really tight. It's the same concept. Your muscles have now let go off of that nerve stem, and now you're really feeling it. So it's
Mhm.
not really pain; it's just comfort.
Wow. Hmm. That's interesting because when I had knee surgery, I had to do physical therapy, and after every physical therapy, session, they would do some type of electric stimulation and
Mm-hmm.
massage. And when I would get home, I'd be like, oh, my knee would feel like I have
You
no
walked a
like,
mile.
yes, like somebody drug me around by my leg as we were walking this mile. But
Yeah, kind of.
I would go to sleep and wake up, and it's like, hmm, feels fine. Feels pretty normal. So I understand where you're saying it gets worse before it, gets better. Thank you for clearing that up in my mind.
Thanks for not letting me be angry.
So what about pregnant women when they come in? What's
See,
what's too far along for them to come in, or is it just
there's no such thing as too
person
far along.
specific?
So there's a myth in the industry, and it's different from state to state. But I think it's more like a liability thing where you're not supposed to work on pregnant women within their first trimester, and it's more so not because of massage will cause stillborns or miscarriages. It's that's when the risk factor is really high, and you don't want to be on someone's radar for that.
Right.
But I'll work with people all the way up to their due date. I'll work with you in labor if we're that close.
He like, hold on, I'll be out in 5 minutes. That is so cool. So, is there anything that you could tell someone who's out there that, they're watching this episode and they're like, oh my God, I would love to do what she does, or I would love to have her as, I want to be her client. How would they
Oh,
get in contact with you? One, two, how would they be able to do what you do?
so through you can get if you want to be a client, because I also do online coaching as well. If I can't get to you physically, I can also put you in a position where we can talk what wellness looks like for you. So you can either get in touch with me at my website at inceptivewellnesssolutions.com or Instagram inceptive_wellness. Now, for people who want to learn from me, I also do coaching as well for wellness professionals. So not just body workers, but also yoga instructors and people who do breathing exercises, just any form of, if you want to learn more trauma informed therapies, you can reach me at my Instagram at the Self Care Chronicles _, after every word.
Okay, mentorship program. I hear you. I love it. Miss Joy will be like, yes, that is
Right.
it's it. Love it. So is there anything else that you would like to share? Anything you'd like to highlight or say hi?
I think, you know, what's funny is that I kind of want to ask you
Okay.
how you got here because, again, I find it very difficult to find other people who like to have conversations in this space of not just mental health, but how it works on a physical level and how we can deal with it physiologically. So, what was your story and how you got here?
So it's interesting that you asked that. When I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, this was the second time, that I had cancer. And a lot of people, my age. So the first time I had cancer, I was like 25, 26, somewhere in there. Because no, actually, I was 27.
Oh, wow.
So I was 27 the first time, and not a lot of people knew that I had cancer. But just imagine if I had said to someone, "Hey, I have cancer. You need to go get checked for XYZ." So between 27 and now I'm 47, between that time, I've had a lot of friends to die, from different diseases and different things. And it's like we never talked about that. We never aired those things out. I know people that have committed suicide that I was close to. And it's like, how did this happen?
I feel like this relationship might be a little magic here because
Okay.
it's you just said something that struck my nerve a little bit when it comes to like what I tell some of my clients, especially the ones who do struggle with mental health, and the one thing that I do try to tell them that gives them solace that they're not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Of the way that we're built as a species, and we established that the human condition is not the way we're supposed to be living, but we also lack community. So, and it's not just a racial thing and it's not a social economic thing. It's just kind of what happened. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole of a conversation for another day. But the
I'm here
reality is that, like, I look at, I was at a point in my life a couple years ago, and I'm 37 right now, where I'm transitioning into empty nesting, and I'm transitioning into a different state of womanhood, and I'm transitioning into all of these places into my life.
for it.
And there's not a single woman around me to help guide me through it.
Wow.
So, like, to when you were saying just now is like that's the thing. That's really one of the big things that is getting people kind of stuck is this place where they're feeling alone, and it's not a point of just being alone, but we're supposed to have community and we don't.
That's right. That is right. And you know what? Now that you say that, I'm working on a night of elegance to
Ooh,
where, we all get to dress up and get to look beautiful, put on our makeup, hair done, all that. And we'll have dynamic speakers that come
let's do it.
and talk. And when they talk, we'll all be at tables with people doing interactive things. But I want to do it for ladies and men because the guys that I know that committed suicide, everybody thought everything was perfect in their lives. They were doing well in their jobs. They were married. They had kids. The kids were excelling. They had beautiful homes. They had everything,
Everything.
everything. And then all of a sudden you wake up the next day and it's a post on Facebook saying rest in peace. And it's like, what?
I've caught a couple of people like that. Just by catching their breathing pattern.
Yeah.
You know, you ask them if they're okay. They're like, yeah.
And
Are
it's
you
like,
sure
no,
you're right? Yeah, I'm all right. And I think it's usually around the fourth time is when they start crying.
yes, that is so true. But the sad part is we're like you and I, we are not around to catch everyone.
Right. So
And
one of my goals was, especially with the transition that I'm in professionally,
mhm,
was why I decided I wanted to teach. I do think that having the skill for myself it was a beautiful thing to learn, and watching it like I can't tell you, or maybe just over time we'll talk about some of these stories, but it was just so great watching people come into themselves in the best way possible. And I I thought about what was going to happen to my industry or for other people when I decided to retire. Does the information die with me? Are there other people out there that chase it as well? Like, but irregardless, I think I've reached a point where it's time for me to come up off my information and teach the people who want to know it.
yeah, Joy would be so happy. She would be so happy. She'd be like, oh, yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, that's where it all starts. The healing starts with us
Yes.
because we're on the other side of all this that people are dealing with, and we're looking at it going, how can we help?
Yeah.
And I love it. I just love it. So yeah, After this call's over, yeah, we got some talking to do.
I'm here for it.
So did you have anything else that you want to share? Any
No,
advice or
I feel like this was kind of like predestined. Like I remember seeing your post and I was like, "Oh, this is cool. Let's connect." And
yeah, yeah.
I think divine intervention at its finest.
Hey, I surrender. I'm here for
Same.
it. Mhm. Absolutely. All right. Well, if you don't have any more gems, because you have been dropping gems since we started, if you don't have any more gems to
I
drop,
would love to come back. Hopefully, we can do this more often.
absolutely, anytime. Especially after we do that night of elegance.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be beautiful. I know it's gonna be beautiful. But thank you so much.
No, thank you for
And
having me. This is great.
look, I get excited every time I see someone say yes, and they turn out to be such amazing guests, and you did that. You
Oh,
absolutely wonderful, amazing guest. So
thank you.
I look forward to working with you,
Same.
and I appreciate your time. And to all those people that's out there watching, all the subscribers and all the non-subscribers, please become subscribers.
Yeah,
Um,
become subscribers.
I just want to say thank you so much for watching this episode 104, The Body Translator. Thank you. Have an absolute amazing day.